He opened the door and froze. Millionaire Judge sees his black housekeeper, hugging his daughter, the promise that changed everything. Judge Aaron Whitcomb opened the tall oak door to his home library and stopped like he had hit a wall. The room was warm and golden from a brass floor lamp. Outside, the city lights sparkled against the black lake. Inside, his world shifted. His 17-year-old daughter, Ava, stood in the middle of the rug, crying softly into the arms of Lila Morrow, the black housekeeper who had cared for Eva since she was a baby, the woman who knew every drawer, every alarm code, every mood in this house. But this hug was different. It was tight. It was shaking. It looked like the kind of hug people give when something big has broken and they are the only two holding the pieces. Aaron's leather portfolio slid from his hand and landed on the Persian rug with a muffled thud. A tiny clink came from the chandelier above, as if even the glass felt the change. He had come home late again, from a long day on a huge case the whole city was watching. The case was about a black single mother, Ms. Raines, fighting an eviction plan that called itself revitalization, but acted like a slow broom sweeping poor families out of their homes. Cameras had waited outside the courthouse. Journalists had argued on TV about what fair meant. In court, Aaron spoke calmly, wore his robe like armor, and told himself the same old line, "In my courtroom, only facts matter." At home, he liked clear rules and no drama. But now, staring at his daughter and Lila, he felt how thin his rules were. "Ava?" he asked, trying to keep his voice soft. The sound of her name felt like walking on glass. Ava lifted her face. Her cheeks were wet, but her eyes were steady. Lila did not jump away. She simply eased her arms, but kept a hand on Eva's shoulder like a steady post in heavy wind. "Judge," Lila said in the calm, careful voice she used when the house needed peace. "We were talking." "About what?" Aaron asked. The words came out too sharp, more like a cross-examination than a father's question. He heard himself and wished he could pull the words back. Eva swallowed. She glanced at the small black box on the side table tied with a ribbon, at a stack of papers under Claire's old fountain pen, Claire, his late wife, then back at her father. "About Mom," she said, "and a promise." The old pantry clock chimed the hour in the next room. The sound felt louder than usual. Aaron had listened to hard truths all day in court. He was not ready for one here. But the room waited for him to say the next right sentence. He took a breath. "What happened?" he asked, this time slower, kinder. Lila looked at Eva as if to ask, "Is this okay?" Eva gave the smallest nod. Lila's voice stayed even. "Your daughter asked me a big question," she said. "I gave her the true answer. Some answers don't fit back into their boxes." Aaron felt a cool shiver in his back, the kind you get when you see a name on a file you didn't expect. "What question?" he asked. Ava wiped her cheek. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Who Mom asked to keep her biggest promise if she couldn't," she said. "And why?" The lamp hummed. The chandelier stilled. Beyond the glass, the lake tapped the shore like a patient hand. Aaron realized this was not a small moment he could sweep to tomorrow. This was the door opening to something that would change their family for good. Before he was Your Honor, before charity dinners and magazine profiles, Aaron had been the smart kid from a tight budget home who studied late and dreamed big. Scholarships took him to top schools. Judges mentored him. Donors liked his speeches. He married Claire, a reporter who loved truth more than comfort. She asked hard questions and laughed loud. He rose through the courts by being steady and exact. People called him fair, careful, measured. He liked that word because it meant he was in control. He never said, "I don't see color." Instead, he said, "In my courtroom, only facts matter." It sounded noble. It also made him feel safely above the messy parts of life that facts can't always catch. At home, another quiet fact ran the house. Lila Morrow. Lila grew up in Bronzeville with a grandmother who ironed hotel sheets and sang in church with a voice that could hold a room still. Lila learned to make a home run the way a good heart runs a body, steady, unseen, essential. She knew how to get cranberry sauce out of linen and stubborn fear out of a child's voice. She had met Claire years earlier at a community clinic, Claire reporting a story, Lila volunteering. They became friends who traded babysitting and recipes and ideas about how to make the city kinder. When Aaron and Claire struggled to have a baby, Lila brought casseroles and hope. When adoption finally came, it felt like a son had been placed in their hands. Ava arrived tiny and fierce, with hair that refused to lie flat and a grip like a promise. The agency kept the file closed. Claire wrote letters to future Eva about her beginnings, planning to share them when the time was right. Then the car crash came. One normal day turned into sirens and hospital lights. Claire was gone. Ava was 9. Aaron broke in the way men who love control break. He kept moving. He filled the days with work, with charity boards, with schedules. He cried in private and called it strength. Ava grieved like a child. Tears, silence, questions, sudden laughter that turned into a sob. Lila grieved like someone who had lost a sister and kept a job. She cooked, washed, listened, and kept the house beating like a heart. As Ava grew, the outside world pressed in. Her private school said all the right words: inclusive, global, community, but small cuts kept coming. A mother praised Ava for being so articulate in a tone that felt like a pat on the head. A student called Lila the maid after being told her name twice. Security asked Lila for ID even after a decade of working there. People smiled and still made Lila wait. These were the tiny tilts in the floor that most people with power do not notice. Aaron almost never saw them. He thought of himself as the good guy, polite, generous, respectful. He tipped well. He used first names. He did not ask questions that might make the air heavy. Ava, however, noticed. She watched who thanked Lila and who spoke over her. She kept a private list. People who understood and people who didn't. In a cabinet in the library, behind heavy law books and family photos, sat a blue box. Inside were Claire's letters, one for Eva at 13, one at 16, and one for when she asks where she came from. Claire had made Lila promise, when Eva asks, tell her the whole truth gently. One afternoon, while dusting the shelves, a habit Lila taught her, things don't stay nice by themselves, Ava moved a folded baptism cloth and the blue box slid forward. She opened it. She read Claire's handwriting. The letters were warm and plain. They said, "You were our miracle. Choose rooms that tell the truth." And then a line that made Ava sit down hard. "There is a woman whose love brought you to us. Her name is Lila." Ava's hands shook. She felt grief and relief pour through her at once. She texted Lila, "Are you awake?" Lila replied, "Always." In the kitchen, with the smell of rosemary in the air and the steady sound of the dishwasher, Ava held out the letter. "I found them," she whispered. Lila didn't pretend she didn't know what them meant. She pulled out a chair, the old one with Claire's nick marks on the leg, and said, "Sit." Then Lila told the story in simple words. When Lila was 19, she loved a boy who wasn't ready to be a man, and then she loved a child who needed a family. She met Claire at the clinic. Claire and Aaron wanted a baby with a love that could fill a stadium. The agency arranged the adoption. Papers were signed. Promises were made. The day Ava was born, Lila held her first. The nurse placed the baby in Claire's arms. 2 women cried in the same key. "You have 2 mothers," Lila said softly to Ava now. "One you went home with. One you came home to. Your mother Claire asked me to love you for both of us if she could not. She asked me to wait until you asked, so truth would be a door you opened yourself." Eva leaned forward and hugged Lila so hard the chair squeaked. "I want Dad to know," she said through tears. "I want your name to be said right in this house." Lila nodded. "Then we will tell him," she said. Together, they didn't plan a speech. They didn't write bullet points. They agreed on one rule: no hiding. When Aaron walked into the library and saw the hug, the truth stepped into the light. "What question?" he asked. Ava stood straighter. "Who Mom asked to be my mother if she couldn't," she said. "And why you didn't know." "Because sometimes the law is just a costume people wear to cover fear." Aaron grabbed the back of a chair and missed. He looked older and younger at the same time. He opened his mouth, closed it. Layla set Claire's fountain pen on the table with care. "Claire asked me to tell Eva when she asked," Lila said. "She asked me to stand with you as her mother even if the papers kept my name quiet." The room felt like a held breath. Then Aaron nodded once, as if signing a silent agreement to listen. "Okay," he said. "Tell me everything." They talked until the clock said it was far too late for a school night. They said words they had avoided: adoption, mother, promise, fear, and they did not fall apart. They went to bed with eyes puffy and shoulders lighter. Morning came fast. It was day 4 of the big housing case. Cameras waited on the courthouse steps again. Aaron wore his robe and tried to wear his old certainty. In chambers, his young clerk, smart, ambitious, a little too pleased with his own jokes, handed over a memo and said, "Optics look great, Judge." The word optics hit Aaron wrong. He thought of Lila and the time security made her wait even though she had a pass. He thought of the school mother who smiled and still made Lila invisible. He thought of the way facts only sounds clean when someone else is made dirty at the door. He walked to the bench. He called the room to order. The plaintiff's lawyer, a black woman with a calm thunder in her voice, laid out how revitalization was pushing families out. The defense, a smooth man with shiny shoes, talked about metrics and uplift, words that sounded pretty and empty. Aaron asked questions. They sounded normal, but to him they suddenly felt practiced, like he was trying to sound like a judge instead of trying to be just. Then something happened no one expected. During a break, Lila came to drop off Eva's lunch at the school counselor's office. The counselor had asked Eva to speak at the multicultural assembly, and Eva wanted Lila there with her. Lila stopped by the courthouse to hand Aaron a note from Eva and to ask which courtroom he was in. At security, a staff member glanced at her, ignored her building pass, and said, "Family first. Help waits over there." A white nanny walked through. Lila did not raise her voice. She kept the visitor sticker that said temp under her name. After she delivered the lunch and the note, she stepped quietly into the back of Aaron's courtroom and waited until the witness finished. Then, in a clear voice that carried without a microphone, she said, "Your Honor?" The room turned. This was not normal procedure. The bailiff bristled and then paused, unsure. Aaron saw her. His heart jumped to his throat. "Ms. Morrow," he said, using the name he had somehow never said in open court. I understand I cannot testify," Lila said gently. "I only want to put something on the record. Your clerk told security I was the help. I was made to wait with a temp sticker while a white nanny walked in. I came to bring your daughter lunch. I left with proof that the door to this courthouse tilts." She held up the sticker. It was a small square of paper, but it felt like a stone in the room. The defense lawyer shot up. "Objection!" he shouted. "Irrelevant." Aaron looked at the lawyer. He saw a man who had never once worried about the door. Then he looked at Lila, who had been holding doors for his family for years. Something inside Aaron finally stopped acting and started seeing. "Overruled," he said quietly. "The door to a courthouse is always relevant." He asked the court reporter to enter Lila's words into the record. He apologized to her in front of everyone. Then he did something judges rarely do. He recused himself. He said, "I cannot keep pretending this room is level while the entrance is not." The gallery buzzed. The defense blanched. The plaintiff's lawyer nodded once in respect. Aaron handed the case to another judge and explained why. Reporters ran to file stories. The clerk resigned before Aaron could fire him. Aaron rode home in the back seat of the car and did not read a single headline. He watched the streets he had ignored and thought about every tilted door he had walked through without noticing. At home, Eva and Lila were at the kitchen island with 3 plates and a pot of soup. Aaron sat down, opened the blue box, and finally read the paragraph Claire had written for him. "Our daughter needs truth more than the myth of fairness. Trust Lila. She is not our help. She is our family." News exploded for a week. Some people called Aaron weak. Others called him brave. The new judge moved quickly. In a clear ruling she found for Ms. Raines. She wrote that the revitalization program was discrimination with a nice name. At the bottom, in a small note, she wrote, "The court acknowledges the lived experience described in open court by a citizen named Morrow." That one line traveled through the city like a new way to say an old truth. The doors are tilted. At home, Aaron faced his own doors. He met with building security. They changed training, scripts, and signs. No more temp for people who belonged. The building asked Lila to sit on the tenant committee with a real vote, not a thank you note. Aaron hired a new clerk who had written her thesis on bias and would tell him when he was slipping. At school, Eva asked to share the assembly stage with Lila. The counselor said yes. Eva read from Claire's letter about choosing rooms that tell the truth. Lila told the story of a promise kept. The gym went quiet. Teenagers actually listened. A boy who had called Lila your nanny raised his hand and said he was sorry. Lila nodded once, accepted, and moved on. In the apartment, they made slow, strong changes. Lila moved from the tiny staff room to the yellow guest room Claire had painted years ago for anyone who needs sunlight. If a neighbor called it a promotion, Eva corrected them. It's a correction. Eva decided to use both names. D'Angelo Morrow. Names are homes, she said. I want room. Aaron took down a few stiff portraits and added new photos. Claire in a newsroom, baby Ava in Lila's lap, all three of them at the beach with sand on their knees. Lila laughing so hard the picture blurred. He re-aimed his legal literacy foundation. Fewer gala speeches, more tenant trainings. He and Lila co-designed a simple course for courthouse staff called Leveling the Door. The badge after that training said Citizen instead of Temp. One Sunday, they rode the train to Bronzeville. Lila's church wrapped them in music and welcome. An elder with hands like bark squeezed Aaron's shoulder and said, You heard? Good. Eva played a wobbly hymn on a keyboard with 2 sticky keys. People clapped like it was a grand piano. They ate church cake that tasted like vanilla and history. Back at the apartment, new habits grew. Sunday breakfast, bad pancakes, good laughter. Tuesday nights, they read one paragraph from Claire's letters and talked about it. Thursday afternoons, Lila taught the courthouse class. Staff left with better habits and a phone number to call when old habits bit back. Aaron began writing a talk for law students. He crossed out colorblind and wrote clear-eyed. He crossed out intent and wrote impact. He crossed out meritocracy and wrote repair. He practiced saying, I used to think order was justice. Now I know justice is truth plus courage, especially at the door. One evening, Ava leaned against the window and watched the lake throw silver at the shore. Dad? She asked. Yeah. Do you think Mom would be proud? Aaron pictured Claire in a noisy kitchen, signing petitions and permission slips with the same pen. He pictured Lila catching a newborn with steady hands. He smiled without forcing it. I think she was waiting for us to catch up, he said. And I think she asked the right person to lead us there. Eva didn't ask who. She didn't need to. Life did not turn easy, but it turned honest. There were still arguments about curfews, car keys, who forgot milk. But apologies were different now. They were actions, not speeches. Lila's voice carried more weight in the house and in the building. Eva's school invited Lila to speak in a parent workshop about respect that isn't just a poster. The workshop filled. People took notes. A month later, the school quietly changed how it trained front desk staff. At the courthouse, the chief judge sent an all-hands memo. Every door is the court's first witness. It quoted Lila's line. Security scripts changed. Chairs moved. Waiting lines shifted. A suggestion box went up and was actually read. The Doors Untilted project at Aaron's Foundation started small. Free Know Your Rights nights at libraries, a stipend for community ambassadors, and a tiny budget to fix simple things that carry big dignity. Translator signs, clearer maps, a child care corner near housing court. The program made headlines once. Mostly it made days easier. In the library at night, the brass lamp glowed. On the side table sat the blue box. Sometimes Aaron read Claire's letters alone and cried quietly. Sometimes he read them with Eva and Lila, and they laughed at Claire's jokes that still landed. He added one more frame to the mantel, the paragraph from Claire that had become their family's rule. Truth before optics. Love before pride. Trust Lila. Spring came. Ava wrote her college essay about the difference between neatness and fairness, about the day her family said names in their true order. She sent it with D'Angelo Morrow on top. She got in where she wanted, not because of her last name, but because her story rang clear. On a Thursday, Lila's class at the courthouse ran out of chairs. A bailiff spoke up about a time he caught himself treating someone like a problem. A clerk admitted she had said "the help" more than once and was done with it. They ordered more badges that said "citizen." A janitor asked for a microwave in the hallway because some people spend 6 hours waiting on empty stomachs. The foundation bought 2. None of this fixed the whole city, but a small circle stood level. That matters. On a warm Saturday, they all walked by the lake. Vendors sold ice cream. A wedding party took photos by the fountain. Eva squeezed Lila's hand. "Do you ever wish we had told Dad sooner?" she asked. Lila looked at the water. "I wish we had never had to keep it quiet," she said. "But I'm glad we told him the day you were ready. Truth sticks best when the person who needs it opens the door." "Like a courtroom," Aaron said. "Or a home," Lila replied. They smiled. The wind shifted. The city glittered like someone had polished it a little. That night, they ate gumbo, burned the first batch of cornbread, and laughed until the fire alarm yelled at them. Aaron wrote one more line for his law school talk. "If your rules protect your comfort more than they protect people, they are not rules. They are excuses. Replace them," he practiced it out loud. It felt right in his mouth. Who keeps the door open for you every day, and do you use their real name when you thank them? If a rule at your job, school, or building looks fair but makes certain people wait longer, what small change would level that door this week? Try one concrete step. Greet the always there person like the expert they are. Swap a temp-style label for a citizen-style welcome, or finally read and share the letter you've been avoiding. Choose outcomes over optics.